So the first book I'm going to dive into in the series, and if you haven't seen the introduction, head over and check it out, is Modern Business Accounting Principles. Before I get started, I do just want to say the book is copyright 1936, the Alexander Hamilton Institute, and the copyright includes the translation into Scandinavian. So let's jump in and find some golden nuggets. And I've not even finished the preface, and there's some serious public service announcements in here. So, a technical knowledge of accounting, whilst desirable, is not a prerequisite for the business executive who wishes to administer efficiently the affairs of her company. And that's something I am signed up for 100%. It's desirable to have more accounting and bookkeeping background than most business owners do, but it's not mandatory. It is essential, though, to obtain a thorough understanding of those principles upon which modern accounting practice is based. You need to understand it, you need to understand how it works and what it does, even if you're not an accountant or bookkeeper. Agree. Completely relevant still, 83 years later. Where a knowledge of accounting principles is lacking, the executive is seriously handicapped. Harsh. But this is the savior for all those non-accountant business owners. The greatest use to which the businesswoman can put her knowledge of accounting principle is not in making certain the business dealings are properly recorded as a matter of historical interest. So it's not about bookkeeping. It's not about making sure your income is posted properly and your expenses posted properly. Instead is the understanding that the recorded data helps in guiding the affairs of her business and formulating the policies of the future. So it's about using accounting information. It's not about making sure everything's 100% accurate, although it should be, but it's about how you use that information to make a better business. In this text, the important things that every business executive should know are presented. So if you're completely lost, grab one of these. Reference to assets, liabilities, income, etc. Are often cause for much confusion among the uninitiated. And the story of what these terms stand for is told here in a clear and interesting manner. Nothing could be clearer than accounting. So if we skip to chapter 1, after justifying the importance of accounting in business organizations, the authors say it is possible for the proprietor of a small enterprise to oversee the operation of her business without the use of an extensive set of records. An extensive set of records. You still need a set of records, but it doesn't have to be the records of big businesses. Totally agree. Because accounting today is far more than a mere record of bygone transactions. It is a necessary instrument of current management, a means of keeping the executive informed at all times of the essential facts and details of the internal workings of the business. That should be the definition of accounting and bookkeeping. It continues to tell us about how accounting adapted to the growth of businesses. Like in 1936, it was a huge transition in the world on how businesses were owned and run and their general size. And as to meet that demand, accounting had to change as well. So, public service announcement number 2, it is no longer possible to wait until the end of the year to check up on the financial affairs of a concern. To do so would result, in many cases, in dismal failure. And that's what I see so many small creative business owners do, is they just do it once a year at the end of the year. How do you know how your business is performing through the year? How do you know what you can and can't afford to do, what you can and can't afford to pay yourself? If you're only doing your bookkeeping once a year, it's not enough, because it is necessary to know what is happening to affect the financial status throughout the year. And 1936, the newer uses of accounting data have far superseded the old uses in modern management. If you think about how hard accounting would have been in 1936, like no computers, having to do everything on paper, and how easy it is now with cloud accounting, just, I can't imagine what the authors would think. So, if you're in a managerial position, and all business owners, in my opinion, are in managerial positions, the accounting records furnish a mass of information. And it's therefore obvious that every person in a managerial position should be able to interpret such statements intelligently. Business women who know how to study accounting reports are better equipped to meet the conditions of modern competition. So an example of that, if your competitor's having a sale, can you afford to do a sale too? Can you afford to do a sale for Black Friday, Small Shopping Saturday, and Cyber Monday if you don't understand where your break-even point is? Can you afford to offer a new service, a new product? Can you afford a new website? These decisions should all be supported with accounting data. Okay? Everything I've read so far, very relevant. And don't worry, I haven't highlighted the book. I've got these little markers that show where I think the interesting points are. So to further drive home the point that you should arm yourself with accounting knowledge, a business woman who only has a smattering of accounting and who lacks experience in interpreting financial statements is handicapped because of her inability to look beyond the records and see all of their implications. Now, I'm going to say that's really quite harsh, because as a business owner, you have to do everything. This book is intended for business executives, and business executives focus on running a business. But business owners have to do pretty much the whole suite. They have to be the production, or they have to be the salesperson, they have to deliver the services, they have to do their administration, they have to do their social media. Like 1936, they weren't doing social media. They have to probably go out in front of customers, and they have to do their bookkeeping. So this is where you need to then think about working with somebody to help you understand that story behind the numbers. I like this. Accounting records a source of facts. Fact number 7 about accounting this. Accounting consists chiefly in classifying business facts. Yep, it is not a particularly complicated process. Although it may appear so from the outside, we have it on authority. It is not a very complicated process. Although it often appears to be rather mysterious to the uninitiated. There exists in the field an accepted code or method of procedure which is used and understood by accountants. So it's an understanding and knowledge that you develop as you work either in accounting or on your business. Then goes on to tell us about accounting, but there's a modernized technique in 1936. So the modern accounting office technique bears little resemblance to the routine of the bookkeeping office of 30 years ago. So referring back to 1906, I can be reassured it certainly doesn't have a resemblance to now. So they used to keep these things called day books where they record everything, and then journals where they allocate, and then ledgers where they put their totals. And he says it's still relevant. So although the outward appearance has changed, internally the function of accounting is actually still the same. But now our cloud bookkeeping software pretty much does all of that for us. But there are 2 types of accounting proficiency, as there are 2 phases of accounting work. One is the technique of operating the system, bookkeeping, while the other involves interpretation of the data. That's your accountant. So that's strictly the difference between a bookkeeper and an accountant. A bookkeeper is operating the system. An accountant is interpreting, I'm really struggling with that word today, interpreting, there we go, the data. So you may be good at one and not good at the other. From the standpoint of successful business management, it's the interpretive style of accounting knowledge that is more useful. So doing your bookkeeping is one step in understanding the process. It's not necessarily going to assist you in having the interpretation of that data. And then as its final point in chapter 1, and this is where I'll leave the video today, accounting is an interesting subject. No arguments here. The interpretation of accounting records is in reality a most interesting field of study. Financial statements furnish to the businesswoman who understands how to use them an interesting means of diversion. I'm not sure what we need to be diverted from. The financial records tell the story of business adventure. They show the ups and downs, the successes and failures of the management. Now, I find that a bit harsh because you can't control everything in business. So you may be able to see a failure, but you may also see just poor customer turnout. If you're doing handmade jewelry or handmade products selling at market, there is no way that rain is a management failure. But your financial records will reflect that up and down. So even though they may be presented in columns of figures and comparisons of totals, there are possibilities of interpretation that will yield information as interesting as anything that may be found in fiction. There is nothing mysterious about accounting. And after mastering the fundamental principles, there is pleasure in constructing the story of a business from its record. How uplifting. So positive. That's actually a really good chapter about breaking down the barriers of I need to understand everything, I need to be able to do everything, I don't have the skills. This is very growth mindset book. You can learn the skills. You can work with people like a finance coach or a small business finance person to help you with that understanding. Until next time, see you later.